Paisans? Welcome back to another amazing episode of Calcio Culture. I am your host today, Logs. I'm here with both of my co-hosts, Mats and Vos. Match Week 5 coverage coming at you live today. The Rossoneri solidify their claim to the Scudetto throne, beating Napoli 2-1 at the San Siro. Inter dominate on their excursion to the island, beating Cagliari. Roma now tied for points at the top of the table after their win against a spunky Verona. And unfortunately for Mats, Juventus dropped points for a second game in a row with a 1-1 draw versus Atalanta at home. Fiorentina continue to flirt with the relegation battle following a 0-0 draw with their neighbors in Pisa. And last but not least, Lecce with some late goal magic to sneak out a point against Bologna. Lads, Paisans, great to have you. How we doing, boys? Mats, how we feeling?
We're feeling good. Match week 5 was a great weekend of Calcio. A lot of goals, a lot of defending, a lot of drama. I thoroughly enjoyed every game that I watched. So I'm feeling good, excited for this episode of Calcio Culture.
Vos?
I'm feeling good. I think my biggest takeaway from this match weekend, apart from like a team by team basis, is there are just a lot of storylines in general that are developing this season. And I think going in, it was like, oh, Napoli are going to take over, Inter are going to be in the mix. Atalanta's kind of like out of the mix, but now it's looking like they're in. You have Fiorentina really struggling. So there's just a lot going on up and down the table. Like even with Cremonese still doing well, it's like, when is that going to end? Is it going to end? And like all up and down the table, it's really interesting. We saw SAS play really good this past weekend. So the storylines are continuing to develop, and we're not even at match week 10, and that we know when that's when things really start to get heated up. And so it's been a great season so far this year, and this was another great match weekend with a lot of big headline news again.
And we're here to cover it all. One thing before we jump into it, Paisans, we do want to mention that our thoughts and prayers do go out to the community up at Lake Como. Torrential and historic flooding has been going on in the region. We are thinking about them day in and day out. Unfortunately, it did affect the game this past weekend. The game was played, but we are thinking about that community, a beautiful city, one that I hope recovers very quickly. And for the Paisans that are listening from the region, you've got our best.
Well said, Lugs. Next time, say it in Italian. That's the only way to make it better. But like with that, should we just get into it?
The Italian version's coming soon.
Italian version going soon. Okay, let's just get into it then. Match week 5, match of the week, very clear. Had to be Napoli at Milan. Fireworks in this game, really. A 2-1 win for Milan. Goals from Christian Pulisic and Alexis Salamakers for Milan. And then a Kevin De Bruyne penalty on an Estupinian sending off. Big for you, Lokes. And I have to eat my words a little bit here. We had somebody comment, why Vane DJ? Last week, I was very harsh on Milan. I said there's no way they're going to win this game. And they did win it. So I'm going to eat my words. I'm wearing my Milan kit in honor of me eating my own words today. So I had to do that. But it wasn't like a new performance from Milan. It was a Allegri ball at its finest. Some really good performances, particularly from Christian Pulisic. I think that was probably the biggest headline from a Milan perspective coming out of this game. This guy may be the best player in the league. He's probably the best form he's ever been in. Maybe the best U.S. player ever right now, realistically. But with that, I'll just give it to you, Lokes, kind of get your first thoughts coming out of this weekend, because this was obviously a big one for you. And like you said, now tied for top of the table in first on goal differential.
Top of the table, feeling great. We got some great competitors up there in Napoli and in Roma, but we are top on goal differential until we play Roma. We'll see what happens. But in any case, I think the real storyline here, not that there's nothing new, but that Milan has been consistent. We haven't seen this type of consistency in the play in over 2 years, I would say. I think a lot of that's coming from the consistency in the midfield from Modric, who continues to show immense passion, immense leadership out on the pitch, gets into it when he doesn't get the pass that he wants. Love to see the emotion out there. Consistency from Christian Pulisic, who at the beginning of last season, we saw a similar type of run to begin the season with a bunch of goals in I think 6 or so different games, at least goal contributions. And so it's amazing to see what has come of this Allegri style of play. We all know from Mats' experience in Juve 2.0 that it may not always be the most exciting soccer to watch. And even Matteo on the broadcast had made a note, I think it was in the 55th or 60th minute, where he was just like, this is what you're going to see for the next 30 minutes out of Milan. Dropping deep, we've already got the lead. Bend, don't break mentality, that Corto Musso style of play rears its unfortunately ugly head, but certainly effective. I know we pointed to Corto Muso in the past. For you Paisans that don't know what that means, it comes from the style of play that just means winning by the thinnest of margins. And that's what Allegri is here to do. He's and Vos, I think you made this the most apparent before the season even started. Allegri's going to get points. He's going to get results out of this Milan team, and it's never going to be the prettiest of football. I will say the first half, I thought that Milan looked great. I think the opportunity set, we took advantage of a very weak Napoli back line, given the amount of injuries that they had going into this game. So that first half was very promising, and I was excited to watch that. Then came in that really boring football in the second half, which almost bit us in the ass, given the fact that we really, really, really leaned on Mignon there in the second half. He played a great game, really had flashes of that Scudetto winning season when he was really a huge part of why we won the Scudetto there. In the end, it was a bend, don't break mentality. We squeaked this one out. And while Napoli looked to be dangerous for most of the game, especially Politano off the right, absolutely cooking Estupinian before his red card, I think that, that back three ended up holding it, and there was an unbelievable amount of good team defense out of Milan. Not to continue glazing this team, but I'm very happy to see the results that we've had. We're now 4-0-1 to start the season. I'm not going to be terribly, terribly optimistic because if we do continue that style of, okay, we're already up, Mats hates this. We're already up. Let's just lean back and not continue to do what was working. Because again, we were cooking that defense in the first half. Don't know why we weren't more aggressive in the second half. But if these are the type of results that we're going to get throughout the season, I mean, so be it. Let's ride.
For me, it was my big takeaways are kind of what you said. Pulisic is obviously in very, very good form, but it's just Luka Modric for me. I mean, I said it going in. I think that I might have underrated how far he could take them on his back or take Milan on his back this season. I
Totally
put
agree.
them
You're
in.
definitely not alone.
I put them in fifth, and I put them in fifth solely because of Luka Modric, and they could be easily top four because of Luka Modric. He's 40 years old. He's playing 90 minutes. He's not making a wrong pass. He is icing the game. He's controlling the game. He's dictating the tempo, and it's been world class performance after world class performance. And this is the type of player that can allow the Corto Muso effect. Right? It was very, very, very effective when Allegri had Pirlo and Modric, whereas during his career, I wouldn't say he was the same archetype as Pirlo, but seems like in his 40s, that's the type of style he wants to play, and he's amazing at it. I'd go as far to say is that a 40-year-old Luka Modric is already the best midfielder in this league. Kevin De Bruyne might be up there as well. I think Modric absolutely showed Kevin De Bruyne how much of a world-class player he is in this game. And he just didn't put a foot wrong. And then, listen, I do think that whereas Allegri would have done the Corto Muso and the sit back and defend, it was out of necessity. You guys were down a man. You're not going to go take the game to Napoli. And I think that you were doing that in the first 15, 20 minutes when you got the 2 goals. You started off perfectly. It kind of played right into Allegri's hand. We're going to sit back, let you guys overplay, and then hit you guys on the counter. And so I think it was a very good setup by Allegri. Like you did mention, though, Conte, I'm not sure why he rotated the back line as much as he did. But the last thing that I'll say is, why are you subbing out Christian on the red card? Sub out Jimenez. Christian's doing more defensively, more on the counter. He's creating. It made no sense to me why you take Christian off there. Jimenez doesn't give you any additional things that Christian doesn't, and we see the form he's in. So that was my one area where I didn't like from Allegri, but other than that, it was a good game by Milan.
Yeah, I'll say before Vos takes over here that that's probably the one blemish on Allegri's side from a management perspective in this game was why in the world he took off Pulisic instead of Santi here, especially given the fact that Santi and then into Leao, which we'll talk about in a second, just did not press up top. Pulisic has unlimited energy and he has the grit to really finish out games, especially from a leadership perspective. So that one was a really just a I don't know what the fuck you're doing there.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess it could be like Christian started the year injured, injury prone, so it's maybe like, okay, we don't really need another goal from a Allegri perspective. It does put you in a hard position, though, because when you do take Christian off, you don't really have a guy that's up there to go press, and that's another one of those like striker conversations we had in the summer. Like, should they have kept somebody else? who's maybe going to put in the hard miles, but that's neither here nor there. This is what he's doing, and it's Allegri ball. We're seeing Allegri ball at its best right now. That is quintessential, get the win done. But on the back of this game, Logs, I'm a little bit surprised that you're kind of as tame as you are, because you after every win so far this year, you've been preaching, okay, we're going to get there, we're going to get there. And this is the first time, and I think this isn't just us, this is everybody that watches Calcio. Are they real Scudetto contenders at this point in Milan? And we've been very hesitant to say they're capable of getting there, but I think on a roster perspective, they probably have the guys to go and do it. I don't think it would be a surprise if they did. And it's kind of been, is the Allegri ball able to go and get this done? But when you come off a game like this, you just beat the best team in the league at home. These are the kind of games you win to win the Scudetto. So where are you at? Do you think there is a real chance that they push this all the way out to May, June, when this thing gets settled?
So for me, first and foremost, I've been hurt. I've been killed by this team in this exact scenario before. There's a little bit of an emotional hedge by me to not overstep my boundaries and take the Scudetto right now. But there's no question that this AC Milan team is one of a couple teams at this point that look the best, that have the best scenario to go ahead and take on the Scudetto run. And the way that, if this again, it's still a couple of factors of, I'm still uneasy with what's to come, because this back line, of which the entire league is questioning, has been playing well, but for how long can that go? How long can Pavlovic look like Bastoni off the left side? How long can Gabbia lock up their best
Pavlovic almost
defender?
got a red card.
Hold on. Pavlovic actually did play really well in this game, and him getting forward looking like a Clydesdale was just amazing. But I'd rather him stay in the back line. And then Tomori gets hurt late in the game here. He's got an adductor injury, and not sure how long he's about. Fortunately, we have Coney de Winter coming in, which will be great to see him get extended minutes. But again, this back line will always be the question, and will always give me pause in terms of how long are we going to, again, bend, not break. I think the other question here is that we have a Stupinian who looked very poor against of aging Politano, and that brings me pause in terms of how well are we going to be able to, again, hold that back line if we're going to be playing a ton of defense in this Corto Musso style. Salamakers, I'll raise my hand and say I'm an idiot, because I've been dogging him for years. He is top 3 player on Milan right now. And Vos, you can have your flowers because you've loved him for forever. I guess those 2 loan stints did him well. But again, we're leaning on, I shit on Lazio last year for leaning on Pedro to score goals. We're leaning on Luka Modric, 40 plus years old, to play 90 minutes a game. I know we're on 1 game a week. I'd like to go after 2 trophies with the Coppa Italia, which is something you'll never hear from me in the past. But this year is the year that we go after the Coppa Italia. But again, I think that with the distractions that teams like Napoli, like Juventus, like Inter have right now in the other competitions, a little bit of depth questions coming into play for these teams, especially with Napoli looking at the back line, where we thought that rotation of 4 stout center backs would do them incredibly well. Now looking like there's holes coming off the back of a 3-2 win at Pisa. Pisa scoring 2 goals on this back line. They had to rotate the 2 center backs here again against Milan. Not looking great in the first half. I'm holding in my emotion. I'm very positive about what I'm seeing on the pitch. I need to see this happen through the next 5 games, get us to match week 10. And if it continues to show, this play style continues, I'm all in.
Yeah. I don't want to overreact. I feel like taking in all like the media and all different sports after big wins, everyone always tends to overreact. I think you need to take this win, Milan, and run with it. But it's 4 games into the season. Is this a statement win? Yes, obviously it is. 100%. Right? They just beat the defending champions. But I'm not going to say this makes them a title contender. I think that obviously they have the benefit of 1 game a week, and it seems like the recipe is for the Serie A is just finish outside the top. don't finish in a European spot, and then go win the Scudetto the next year.
Napoli did it last year.
That's the recipe. Yeah.
That's the recipe to do it. Like, I think that they can be contenders, and at the end of the season, they could be there to possibly make a run, right?
Okay, but you're saying could be. Right now, yes or no, are they contenders? The answer is yes. It has to be yes.
It's 4 games into the season. I don't think we should be asking that question, really. Like, I think we should be asking that, but I don't think there can be an answer 4 games into the season. That's
I
better.
think it's so clearly yes. And I think Vos would be on my side as well.
But I will say, like, the midfield is very, very solid in terms of just the bodies and the runners you guys have, and that can maybe make up for the lack in the defense, like you were talking about, Logan.
Vos, before you go, Mats, I want to hear your opinion because I certainly have a strong opinion here. What are your thoughts on Allegri's son,
Mhm.
Rabiot, in his first couple of games here at Milan?
Yeah, he's been pretty solid. I think it really, really helps him having Luka Modric behind him. So it allows him to maybe be more free, but it also helps Modric to have a runner. So I think it's a very good partnership. I think he's been playing well. I'm not going to lie. He had an assist last game, but he's never been like a stats guy or a creator. He's been more of the legs in the midfield and the ball winner. And when you have a creator as creative as Modric next to him, you don't need him to do much. So I think that he's been very well. I'm not going to lie. And I think that he is doing this well because he has a player like Luka next to him. At Juventus, he never had that.
Yeah, I only ask you because I know in the past you've been the biggest Rabiot hater.
I hate Rabiot. I hate
I've
him.
been right. I've been right, and we hate his mom too. I've been right next to you. But what I will say is that having Modric next to him allows him to just open up his entire game. He again not very creative. He's not a super technical dribbler, but certainly can drive the ball forward. What I think Rabiot now needs is another partner on the other side. That's not Fofana. I think this was
No.
Fofana's best. I think this is Fofana's best game of the season, and obviously was in the right spot at the right time to lay it off to Pulisic, but I think there needs to be a little bit more creativity going
No.
forward from that spot.
You're wrong, dude. You're getting this is the reason that Rabiot looks so good, and at Juve was a little bit different because they didn't have that creative force. Is Fofana's job and Rabiot's job is just not that hard. You just need the right guy to do it, which is just cover some ground and like don't do anything really dumb. And that's all they need to do. Everything else is everybody else's job. That's why as long as you just put a runner in here that is okay on the ball, has been in some big game situations, they're going to do well. I think the worst thing they could do was try to get another creative player on the team if this is the style of play they want to play going forward. Because Fofana is a great driver of the ball, but like he doesn't have the end product. He doesn't really have the pass to do that, but great defensively. So I think it would actually be a mistake to try to say, we're doing well. Let's try to get more creative. Because that's not what Allegri is. I don't think he's ever going to think to do that. And I think it'd be a mistake to try to do that at this point in the season.
I think Loftus-Cheek offers the same amount of running and driving the ball.
True. That's
but
true.
slightly more creativity, and
he
he doesn't lack any of the physicality, because I think we've seen, and it is early, that he's not gonna do the Ricci Modric thing.
No,
and I don't expect it from
with that.
Allegri, the way that he lines his teams up, in that we're gonna be physical, we're going to dominate the midfield. He's gonna keep Modric as his playmaker, and then he's gonna have two runners, ball winners, drivers in Rabiot, Fofana, Loftus-Cheek off of Modric.
No, that's fair. And I think I would have a very different opinion, even though that is still my opinion, if Santi was way more effective than he is, but he's literally just a black hole up there. He was non-existent again in this game. And I don't know how much longer the experiment can go when he's giving performances like that in such big games. But I think with that being said, Bose, I think we need to cover Napoli a little bit here.
Yeah,
Unless you think it's really a
I think before we jump to Napoli, I think you just transitioned to a really good point in Santi Jimenez, because we have kind of been just mentioning it. Like, oh, he's been bad, but he hasn't been given the chance. He's been bad, but he needs more opportunities. And now we're at the point where Leao made his debut on the season. He came in off the bench, so he is presumably going to be back now. And now the question mark for Allegri is, are you going to play Leao and Pulisic together as those two like number nines in a way? Because a couple years ago, Pioli played Leao as a 9, and it went horribly. We talk about how he fades out of games. He was never even in games when he was playing in that central area. And we all know that he wants to go out to wide areas, which is also what Christian wants to do.
Right.
So it's kind of like something is probably going to have to change for them to make this work, because regardless of Santi's poor finishing, he has been a central forward who does suck in players and has created really good chances for himself. So if they do take him off the field and add Leao, you know, have two guys that kind of want to play wide. Are you going to lose that kind of like field stretcher in Santi? And is that the right decision? I think, especially from a Milan fan, and the person that's been probably the biggest Santi Jimenez supporter in the entire existence of all time and space. Where are you at? And do you think it would work if he does do that? And I mean, play Leao and Pulisic.
I have been a huge Santi supporter. I have been fully behind him, and I know that there's something there. I think you make a really good point that he does drag defenders with him. He's really good at extending the field that way. Do I think he's always in the best position when he's dragging those defenders? Not necessarily, but you can't, like I said last episode, he's had the most missed clear opportunities in the league. If you just convert a couple of them, then you start to get some momentum. I thought that scoring a goal against Lecce in the Copa was going to be that first step forward. Maybe this just wasn't his game. Maybe we do need another 90 minutes out of him to give him some more opportunity. Is that going to come against Juve next week? I'm not entirely sure. Is that going to come after the international break? Maybe. But bringing Leao back into this lineup is going to be tricky because, again, like you just said, you made it very clear that he's going to want to do the same things that Pulisic is doing. And why are you going to take Pulisic out of whatever he's doing right now, and he's at the best form of his life, just to put Leao in, who's coming off an injury and may mess up this chemistry that we have going forward? I still think that Leao can be and will be one of the best players in this league this year. But to mess up the formula that we have going, I think would be a mistake. I don't think that there's anything wrong with taking some time to let Leao get back into the flow of things. Again, an injury for a month now, especially after a very long summer for him, he's not going to come back into the flow immediately. So, and then again, international break after one more game against Juve next week, it doesn't hurt to let Leao have a couple of weeks here. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Leao not start for at least a month here, and that's fine by me.
I'd also say he's not going to sacrifice or give as much on the defensive end and the positioning and pressing as Pulisic does in the Allegri system, right?
Mm-hmm.
I lean towards don't throw him in. However, his name, his reputation, you're going to have to play him. But I think it's going to look a lot different if you do take him and put him on the left, and then you can't bench Christian right now because of the form he's in. So does he change the formation? I don't think so because things are going so well. So it's definitely a situation or a complicated question, but it's a luxury to have the players that he does. And we haven't mentioned Nkunku as well, who I think can very much slot in that Jimenez and occupy the space in the center, stretch the center, as Vos mentioned. Jimenez is doing very well, and Nkunku will finish the opportunities that Jimenez has. So you have a lot of flexibility. It's going to be tough for Allegri to balance it on the one game a week. It seems like even though with the form that Christian's in, for whatever reason, since he's been at Milan, he has 51 goal contributions. There's 107 games played, 34 goals, 27 assists, the most goal contributions since the start of last season. And for whatever reason, he is the substitute every time. First guy coming off, it's him. I don't know why. I think that it probably will go back to that when Leao comes because it's just the player that Leao is. But I think that it could hurt them a lot because Christian is honestly just as dangerous on the counterattack, but way better tactically in defending and sacrificing for the shirt because he doesn't have as big as an ego as Leao does. So we'll have to see what happens. If it were me, I wouldn't go directly to Leao, just like Logan said. I would wait it out, but we'll see.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're going to find out, but like Lo just said, we do have to talk about Napoli. They were the other team in this one. Notably here, I think we have to get this out of the way early. A lot of injuries, particularly in the back line. So essentially three kind of, I wouldn't even call them second stringers almost, like maybe third string players in the back line. He played it back four in Mario Nucci and Juan Jesus, who's the center back pairing, and then left back in Gutierrez. Out of this game, Mateus Oliveira on injury, Amir Rahmani on injury, Alessandro Bongiorno out on injury, Spinazzola out on injury, and we still don't have Lukaku. So that sets the stage. It was a very rotated defense. Sam Bukema was on the bench. I think he was being punished, honestly, for a couple bad performances. So a little bit of a caveat in this game. That being said, they basically outplayed Milan and they had the opportunities to win. They ran into Mike Mignon, who had one of his best games, I think, of the last 2-3 seasons, to be honest with you. Generated the XG to get it done. They don't. For me, it kind of feels like a disaster with where Napoli is at, and I still think Milan is at. Napoli are we're Scudetto favorites. Milan still in that like transitional. Like, are you going to be in the mix? Are you not? So for me, I came away with this game saying disaster. They needed to at least get a point, and I was really surprised that they didn't get 1 point out of this. I think when you talk about Antonio Conte, this is one of those games where historically he would say we're not going to lose. If we win, great. And it seems like he's maybe gotten away from that.
Historically, maybe, but then when you look at the lineup sheet, I get all those guys were hurt, but not all of them were injured. Like Spinazzola just played, Bongiorno played the game before. Like I think this was a little bit of Conte saying like we have Champions League as well. Like this was what's his name's debut, Marianucci. Like he just threw him out in the fire, baptism by fire against Milan in the San Siro. So that's not like typical Conte rolling out these three different defenders that are clearly second, third string. So when I saw that, I was like, I don't understand it from Conte there. But he said in the press conference before, a lot of my guys are tired. We're going to rotate. Why you pick this game to rotate, I'm not sure. So is it like a mind game with Conte? I don't know because he sacrificed 3 points there. But yeah, what do you think, Lokes?
I mean, look, kind of like piggybacking off of that, though, what we've always talked about Conte is he's a one-game-a-week manager, and he tries to win the league. Is he maybe getting away from that? Because based off of this lineup sheet, you'd say he's prioritizing midweek Champions League, where they did drop points in their first game in the Champions League. And this might be a storyline. Like, are you worried about that from a Napoli perspective? Like, we saw an evolution of Antonio Conte last year where he had he would change formations. He did all these interesting things. Now is he, okay, I'm going to be a European manager. And could that be problematic?
Well, just to answer that part, and I'm not saying that this is the case, but it is something interesting to think about. You wonder if in this return to Napoli, if part of it was in his mind an opportunity to go after a European title, and if this is more of a legacy season for him than what is traditionally known as going after the domestic title. And so, are we going to see most of the efforts put into the midweek games, into those Champions League games? Maybe. But I do think that if they do falter here in the league, that's still going to be a blemish on his entire career of he's always been super, super effective in the league, in the domestic league, whether or not he goes far and what I think is not a team ready to go that far in the Champions League. So interesting to see. I think one thing here that we haven't it's very clear. The last 3 games, the back line, not it. You guys have covered it. I'm not gonna harp on it. But I think another thing here that I found interesting was that McTominay, for the very first time since he's joined Napoli, in my opinion, was almost non-existent. I don't think that he was effective at all in this game, and to see him get bottled up in a midfield like that, maybe is it just a flowers to the Milan midfield? Potentially, maybe. But is it really just is he gonna hide behind Kevin De Bruyne for the entire season? I don't think that that's the case. In this game, he tended to hide. He just wasn't effective. I thought Zombo was actually incredibly threatening throughout the game, which is something that we know he can do, but not something that doesn't always shine through. You would like to see in this big of a game the MVP of last season come through, show up, and and get at least the point, like you said, out of this game.
Well, I think that's a good point, and I think that maybe we're seeing over the first 4 games of the season because against Pisa, like we mentioned, sure they did win 3-2, but it was a much closer game than 3-2. Fiorentina they won 3-1, but it was a much closer game. I think that we're seeing maybe this forced midfield of all 4 of my center mids playing might not necessarily work and doesn't get the best out of everybody. So it could lead to maybe a change of shape, which I think he introduced in this game when there was a red card. He needed when Allegri was playing the sitting back. Napoli couldn't pass around it. So it's like, all right, we need some one-on-one players in this game. That's when he subbed on David Neres and Noah Lang, and we saw them be able to take their man on and get shots on target. If Luka Modric's head is not in the perfect position, David Neres scores that goal, and it's 2-2 on that cut in from the left and that uh, um, finesse shot. Modric blocked it, went over for a corner. But David Neres was a game changer. Noah Lang, I didn't necessarily love, but they have type of players that can attack on the width, and then maybe they go back to 4-3-3. So do we think maybe Conte will start changing the shape because it hasn't necessarily worked with playing all 4 of these center midfielders in?
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
the change of
I mean,
shape is like a really interesting point. And I thought in this game, especially with the injuries, he would maybe have gone back to like a traditional back three to kind of give all those new defenders like a little bit of cover, and he didn't even do that. And I think the other thing that it's kind of being swept under the rug. He's playing a four-man midfield. Is that partially driven because Romelu Lukaku was one of their most creative players last year, and they don't have him, and they need to replace those assists from elsewhere? I mean, if they have Lukaku, does this team look really different? I think it's something that everybody needs to keep remembering. Last year, double-digit assists for Lukaku, was one of the best players on the team, probably went under the radar in the league as a whole. So I think we just have to keep that in our minds.
But I think it's because you can't bench Scott McTominay because of the season he had last year. You can't bench Kevin De Bruyne because he's Kevin De Bruyne. Zombo is the engine, and then you need a pacer.
Yeah.
He's like, if I don't play Ibaka, what does it look like? So I think that's why he's pushing all four of these guys in, and it might not be working. And he subbed off De Bruyne. Now, granted, against Manchester City, Di Lorenzo got a red card. You had to sub out an attacker, but he picks De Bruyne, comes off early, 30th minute. De Bruyne, it is what it is, but that kind of stuck for him for the return to the Etihad. Then the first substitute last game was De Bruyne again, and he got pissed. And he was like, he was not happy. He didn't shake Conte's hand. Conte was asked about it after the game, and he basically said, I hope he was mad at the result, because if he's mad at the substitution, he's getting mad at the wrong person. So I think that maybe Conte might start to introduce it. Also, we know that he does slowly get guys in, and Noah Lang's a new signing, but they have the capabilities to play a 4-3-3. And he did, obviously, in the beginning of the season say we have 22 starters. So maybe it's time to go away from this four-man midfield that it's the diamond or so. So we'll see what happens. But I think that there's definitely room for change in the Napoli lineup.
I mean, my only comment.
Yeah, go ahead, Lux. No, go ahead, Lux. I'll piggyback after this.
I'm changing subject.
Okay. My only other comment then, because we're all saying like, oh, maybe switch, maybe do a change of shape. What would you have it be? Like both of you guys, just if we get away from a diamond, where does he go from there? And who are you taking off the pitch to get some other guys in there?
Well, maybe I'm not changing subject because I guess that flows into it. But one thing that I would have done in this game in particular is with the way that Politano was playing, get Luka in there much earlier, because as much as Højlund is a big body, Luka is an even bigger body. That guy is gigantic. And with the service that Politano was putting in there, it would be hard to miss Luka's head in the box for that last 30 minutes, 40 minutes of the game. I would have liked to have seen that, because while Politano is getting old, I think that he was informed this game. David Neres is not necessarily looking for assists, but is definitely a driver of the ball, definitely a dribbler, which is effective against a low block. And they said on the broadcast that they need to get Noah Lang and they need to get David Neres in there much earlier, because the low block that Milan was playing was not lending itself to being a crossing opportunity. Going forward, I think that you do play Noah Lang off the left. I think that he can be similar to how Kvaratskhelia had played in the past. I think that you don't need him to be both the playmaker, the deep playmaker, and the dribbler. He can just be the dribbler because you do have KDB. So you finally fill that entire hole that Kvaratskhelia has now left. And I think Noah Lang can do that very nicely. Start getting him some reps, because I do think that he's going to be a very important player later on in the season. And if you don't get him involved early, I don't know if he'll adapt quick enough.
I think you go 4-3-3, and I agree with Logs. Politano had a great game. He's had a good start to the season. You bench him, and then you bench De Bruyne. You won the Scudetto off of a very similar lineup last year, and then you have Noah. You had Noah Lang. You guys remember?
I don't hate it. I'm just surprised.
Pep benched De Bruyne all the time.
Yeah,
all the
that's
time.
True.
De Bruyne was benched, and he came in as a sub.
He's a chess piece. Like, he's a really good chess piece.
Yeah, and so I think that you can go to that every now and then. I'm not saying that's your starting lineup every time you're benching De Bruyne. I think you have to rotate these guys. So sometimes bench Scott, sometimes bench Zombo. I think to start when you're I don't want to say they're struggling, because they're at the top of they're tied at the top of the table and they have won their games, but in some cases go back to what worked last year, and you just add a more dynamic piece off the left in Noah Lang.
Yeah, for me to answer my own question, I think what would be extremely interesting is go to like a 4-3-3, and then I think probably the first guy I'm taking off the field is probably Zombo, and going Ibaka, De Bruyne, McTominay. And what I think would be really interesting is to play Højlund in like the quote-unquote left wing position, but not actually play there. because you have Spinazzola who can take that full width.
I knew Spinazzola was coming up, right?
Because then when you think about it, you have Højlund who's a little bit more like speedster, a little bit more technical. Get Luka on the pitch at the same time, and then keep Politano out there. So now you're really dangerous on crosses. You have a guy that can stretch the field, be like that. I don't know what to call Højlund. Højlund's like a little bit of everything
Makeshift
kind of
winger.
striker. And then that creates a really difficult dynamic. It's a big man, little man dynamic of two guys that are big up top. And I think that could be really effective against some teams. All right.
I doubt they trot both of them out
Yeah,
there,
no
especially when
chance.
Lukaku's hurt.
0%
But maybe when Lukaku comes back, we see something like that.
All right, cool.
To be determined.
So that was the biggest game of the weekend. The other game we really want to spend some time on was the other massive game, two Titan clubs. Atalanta at the Allianz taking on Juventus. This game ended 1-1. Goals from Sulemana, the new signing, who's had a blistering start to the season, I would say. And then Juan
Awesome
Cabal off
start.
the bench. Was this his first game of the season, Mats? The first sub?
No, he played a game before, but this was his first goal for Juventus.
Big goal, too. Stole some points back. There was a late red card in this game on Darun. And Juve did create a couple of really close opportunities to get the win at home. Unfortunately, they didn't. I think for you, Mats, I would guess you see this as kind of a failed game, right? Like Juve at home, you kind of expect to win, even if it's Atalanta, even if it's Inter. You just beat Inter at home. You only get one goal. I mean, the conceding one, like you'll take that, but you would like them to go win this game. What were your thoughts coming out of it immediately and a couple days removed?
Yeah, I mean, you got to win this game. If you just look at the start of the game, who Atalanta rolled out there, you're obviously Lookman has been not in this team. He is warming up. He did get his a debut a game ago. I forget against who, but no Ederson. He didn't play. Right, their starting center back was injured, so it wasn't like, oh, this is their best 11. Right, Skamaka didn't play. CDK didn't even start. He did come in, but like Juric didn't roll out Atalanta's go get like these are our best players, right? So that was frustrating to come away with the tie with not their Atalanta's best players on the pitch. With that said, I don't think Juventus played poorly. They dominated possession. I think Atalanta had a very good counterattack, which Juventus need to get better at defending the counterattack. There's no shape at all when it comes to that. But it's just more of the same under Tudor that we saw under Mata, right? Just more draws. This is the second draw in a row. We can't go win the game, even though we're up a man in the home pitch. McKinney had that chance at the end on the corner. It's tough. The ball's coming in hot. 9 out of 10 times maybe that goes in, but this time it didn't. So that was a little frustrating, but there's not a whole lot of positive to take away in this game. There's no creativity on the offensive side. If we're on that low block, it's really just give it to Yildiz and pray he does something. No one else has any type of creativity or can create anything in the low block, and it's very, very frustrating.
And for you, the Mats, because the problem is getting that goal. And going back to last year, it was kind of the same thing. Like they were good in possession, but never created. And I think you can kind of point to the midfield. But the big question mark for you has to be, what is the best front three? And we did see Zagrova come in and lock probably his first big minutes for the team. I thought he was very good. Logs had a different opinion.
I thought he was good as well.
And you still have Jonathan David. You have this like new form, Dusan Vlahovic, and Openda, who I thought was. I get the idea of trying to use him here, and like Atalanta wanted to press really high and then go over the top, but they never really tried. It was kind of weird. But for you, what is the best three? And like, what would you like to see going forward? Because a couple of weeks ago, you put out an episode of like kind of the different ways they could play. I'm a little bit surprised we haven't seen Jonathan David, Dusan Vlahovic, and Openda all play together at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Part of that is Yildiz, I guess, actually. So Yildiz is always in there.
Well, listen, so that's a very, very good question, because Tudor himself in a press conference, because somebody asked, like, will we ever see these guys together? Because in these first 5 games or even the Champions League, it's been one of them, right? It's been either Dusan, Jonathan David, or Openda. And it started off as Jonathan David, and he's kind of very quickly fallen out of Tudor's favor. We're down, or it's tied 1-1 this game. They're down a red card, and he went to Juan Cabal. Granted, Bremer had maybe a small knock, but he's not coming to their number 9 that they signed, which is not good. That's not good. Luis Openda, he's starting slow. Like he he's not going to be effective in Serie A games for Juventus because he is a run in behind type of player, which you can't do on a low block. And then you have Vlahovic, who we know what Vlahovic is. Like he's in form, but he can't hold up the ball and link up play and create. So can they all play together? Tudor said no. So are they going to play together? Probably not. Then you have Adzic, who started this game, and he was, oh my God, so poor. He's the reason why Atalanta scored a goal. He was a turnover every single time. He's young. I like that he played. I don't want him to lose confidence, but he is clearly not at the starting level. He
I have
needs
to
to
give
play.
credit to Tudor for rewarding his big goal. Like that,
Yes.
most managers do not do that. I don't know if this is a game to do it though.
Exactly. Start him against Verona and not Atalanta. So what the best front three is, it has to be, in my opinion, Kenan Yildiz for sure. And I think that for whatever reason, Tudor doesn't like him because he was losing a lot of duels to start the season. But Jonathan David off of Yildiz is the best option here, in my opinion, because he's the most like Kolo Muani. And we're missing Kolo Muani because Kolo can play off of everybody. It's you guys
Dude's
laugh,
having
but
nightmare,
No,
absolute nightmares.
You're definitely right. It's just like they didn't get it done, and it was so obvious they needed to get it done.
it's not.
Which I guess
it
is on
wasn't
PSG. It's on PSG. It's not
the
on.
unnamed team. It was the unnamed team. But the problem with Openda and Vlahovic is they're not the best playing off of another guy. I guess Openda did it with Sesko, but in the Bundesliga, you're playing such high lines that he can run in behind and thrive. Vlahovic is terrible at hold up play. Jonathan David, that is what he's good at. Holding up the ball, having guys running off of him. He can take that space. So I would like to see a Yildiz, a Jonathan David, and a Zagrova. Will we see it? I don't know because we haven't seen Jonathan David in quite some time.
I'll touch on Zagrova in a second. I think the problem here with the front three for Juve is that the best combinations are all different formations. Like your best front with Zagrova in it is definitely not going to be a 1-2 with two strikers, right? Your best combination of Jonathan David and Openda might be that front two, but that one could also be the front three. And then I think there's another issue of you have to
That's a
play
good point.
Yildiz, right? Like you have to fit in Yildiz. Luckily enough, he can play the 10 or he can play off the left. But that also just gives you that rotational factor of, hey, we have to now pick between Jonathan David, Openda, Vlahovic. Then you have Conceição, and then you have Zagrova. I think it's a good problem to have, but I think we noted it in the season preview is that it's going to take some time to figure out that formula. Clearly hasn't figured it out yet. Clearly hasn't figured out who plays off of who best. I agree with you, Mats. I think Jonathan David got cut very quickly here, and I think part of it was the fact that Vlahovic was playing pretty well, but I do think you got to get him back in the lineup and get him some more minutes because I think he was rather effective before them. My problem with Zagrova in this game, he comes in for the last 20 some odd minutes, very clearly a completely technical player, loves being on the ball, was consistently coming to pick the ball up from the back line to bring it forward, especially when Darun had the red card. They're down to 10 men. My problem with it all was it was like Robin, but he's not Robin. He was clearly only going to go to his left. He was allergic to taking the ball with his right foot. And I don't know why. I don't remember who the defender was on that side. Was it Ananor or was it
Zappacosta.
No,
Sunu?
Zappacosta.
Zappacosta.
Yeah, Zappacosta got
I don't know.
cooked.
I know, but he shouldn't have never been cooked. You should have just been so overloaded to his left foot, force him down the right side because it was so clear that that's the only place he wanted to go. I also think that and you guys were telling me off for this, but I don't think his service was that great. Again, maybe it's the guys in the box, and again, they're playing a deep line, so they got 9,000 guys in the box. I just don't think that it was that great. A little underwhelmed by Zagrova there. So, in my opinion, is he part of the best three? I don't think so. I think it goes back to what Mats has always been saying about having a front two, have two nines, have a big man, small man, and have Yildiz be the creator behind it. Again, growing pains here. I'm still hot on Juve. I still think this Juve team is going to be in the top four coming to the end of the season. I don't have concerns there. But one thing I will note is, and the reason that I had Juve in this top four was because I did think that this was going to be a more electric front line, need to see more goals like we had seen 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, and just like as we're like having the discussion and talking about the front line and like the different combinations you could do, I would really hate to see Tudor move Yildiz into like a central 10 role because already off the left, as soon as he gets the ball, he immediately sucks in like 3 or 4 players. And if you move him into the middle of the field, I think he's going to have a lot harder time having a big impact on the game, although I think he will still be good. Part of the issue is that Yildiz is the offense right now. So everybody's like, okay, we're just going to, every time he gets the ball, we're just not going to let him do it. We're going to squish him immediately. And they don't have a guy on the other side of the field or in the middle of the field who is like, okay, we can't send everybody because we need to also cover these guys. In Zagrova off the right, this is like a very much an overstatement, but looks like an Eden Hazard to me, where he can take on guys. He's like, give me the ball so I can go do something with it every single time. Like what we loved about Chiesa. That was the best part about Chiesa. And I think he's a different player, but similar in his direct ability. And that is, I think, going to be the recipe going forward. Yildiz and Zagrova as the wingers. I think what's really hard about that number 9 is that, and I think we all talked about this in the game, is they were crossing the ball a lot. And the crosses weren't bad, but they don't have anybody to go and finish the cross because Openda isn't that. Yildiz isn't that. Zagrova obviously isn't that. And then Coop Miners isn't really going to be able to get up there. Thuram, not really in the way that they want to play. So, like, if you're going to stick to that crossing, you have to play Vlahovic or Jonathan David, and Vlahovic is better at that one thing. But Jonathan David's probably really the better player. So it is a weird one, and there might be a couple tactical shifts that need to happen. But I see a way where the best front three is Yildiz, Jonathan David, Zagrova, and just let them figure it out. They're 3 very good technical players. Just you have to give them a run of games to go and just get it together.
Yeah, that's what I was itching to say this whole time, because Jonathan David and Zagrova came from Lille, and they qualified in the new stage of the Champions League in the top 8. They were very good in the Champions League, and they've already played together, and they know how to play off of each other. It would just be Yildiz learning them to. Yildiz is the best player on the team. I don't see Yildiz struggling to play off of those 2 players. Also, Jonathan David is the one and only striker that can once again do what Kolo Muani could do, drop in and play the ball to his feet and then flick it or 1-2 to somebody else. Openda and Vlahovic cannot do that. They're not that type of player. And so that's why those 3, in my opinion, I agree, can work. And also, then what it gives you, like Conceição and Zagrova are basically identical to each other. So it doesn't make it that hard. It's a like for like switch there. And then I guess when you put in another striker, then you have to somewhat change up the play. But I think it could be Yildiz, David, Zagrova, and I think it could be Yildiz, David, Conceição. But we'll have to see what Tudor, what he goes to, because he did say we're not seeing both of them or all 2 of them on the pitch at the same time.
At the end of the day, a 1-1 draw against Atalanta, not the end of the world. I think it's still a good start to the season for Juve. But before we move on to Atalanta, if you guys will allow me, I think we need to talk about one of the elephants in the room that we've been tiptoeing around, Toon Coop Miners. Another not great performance in playing in his preferred position. At what point, Mats, is it like,
yeah,
you can't keep playing him? Like he is getting opportunities now, and especially like you're comparing him to the 3 guys basically that are playing Locatelli, Thuram, Coop Miners. And as ineffective as Locatelli sometimes is, you can't point to him as like bad performances. Like Coop Miners is doing nothing out there for me. And it's just, at what point are you done with him?
Yeah. So I've been last season, it was play Coop Miners in the pivot. And I actually said a lot of times with Thuram, and Tudor did that finally. And it's still not necessarily working. I do think these have been Coop Miners' best run of games when he's playing in the 2-man midfield, not when he's
horrible. Playing. These are his best games.
Well, when he's in the 2-man midfield, he's better than when he's playing that right offensive mid position.
That is
true. So here's my.
Certainly.
This is my last. This is I have 1 leg left with Coop Miners, and this is going to be it. And it's going to be play him in Thuram's spot with Locatelli, because then, and I know last season I said it was Coop Miners and Thuram, but if you think about it, Ederson was kind of like the pacer, right? And Coop Miners was the go get forward, score goals guy. That's what Thuram is for us. So now go put Coop Miners in Thuram's spot and then put Locatelli next to him, and then let's see how he does. If he does poorly, then you have to move on from him. It's the 60 million down the shitter, terrible buy. Him or Calafiori. Mata said him. Then we sold Hoyson and Sule, and so much.
Oh, he's having flashbacks.
Yeah,
Wait, so
so-
are
got
you saying
PTSD.
you want like? All
No,
right,
that's.
so I guess
think,
this is a two.
I think we need to
two-piece
clarify
question.
that.
Yeah, because would you say like let's drop Thuram,
Whoa.
play Coop Miners there with Locatelli? Because
So I don't
I still think Thuram is the second best player on the team. I think.
Yes, no, I agree. Well, maybe third behind Bremer.
Yeah, behind
with
Bremer,
Yildiz.
yeah.
But here's the thing. Thuram has been absolutely gassed. The last
True. Good point.
Dortmund, he was gassed. Verona, he was gassed.
This game,
Atalanta,
yeah.
he was gassed. So I'm not. This goes back to what I said about Kevin De Bruyne and sitting him. It's not we're benching Thuram every game. It's let him rest, rotate the squad, try the Coop Miners next to the Locatelli. And I think Tudor has been doing that. He is trying to figure out this Coop Miners puzzle. I think that is the last area that you can try him in and let Locatelli pace it and let Coop Miners be the up top. Because these two together, they do the same exact stuff and they don't work together. And that kind of goes with like the strikers with Openda Vlahovic and Jonathan David. They can't really play together. We have a lot of talent. Trying to get that to mesh is Tudor's problem right now. But that's what I would say. What do you think, Logs?
No, I don't hate that at all. I just want to make sure that we're not saying that Thuram shouldn't be playing. That would be an overstatement of the century.
I think the other
that
thing-
Juve have chances to do exactly what you're saying, Maz, because of the amount of games that they have to play. There are going to be opportunities to say, okay, Thuram, take the breather that you need. Coop Miners, listen, buddy, if you don't play well this game, you're sat for the rest of the season. We're going to sell you for pennies on the dollar, but here's your last chance. Which I think that Locatelli in that locker room would be able to be like, all right, buddy, let's get ready, let's go, let's get this game going. You know, like I think
it's
that
not even.
there are definitely
He looks motivated.
He does. I agree with that.
especially against this game. In this game, he
anytime
looked
Juventus
very
scores a
motivated.
goal, he drops to his knees. Like he looks motivated. He loves the Juventus. It's just like not translating. Is it the weight of the jersey? Is it the price tag he came with? Is it the expectations of the move? I don't know what it is, but like he's always working. He always looks motivated. He wants to win. It's just the output isn't there or the execution.
Yeah, what I will say on your point, Mats, of like having this rotation, I think we're really close to the point, and I think some clubs are kind of starting to do this, like particularly Man City, where there's so many games and clubs have so much money to spend that you have like 22 starters basically, and it isn't actually like these are our best 11. It's like literally every guy, you are a number one player, even though you're not playing this game. Like, because there are so many games, and you have a game every three days. Like, you need to have like you need guys like that level of like a Coop Miners on the bench to be able to like deal with all this.
That's a top team in the world type mentality, and according to Tudor, Juventus is not a top team in the world.
Oh, that was that was so bad.
Somebody say what he said here.
Somebody asked him about Cambiaso, and he said Cambiaso, he lacks the consistency and locking in for 90 minutes every game. And if he could do that every game, he would be able to move to one of the biggest clubs in the world, like a Manchester City, Liverpool, Real Madrid. And then he basically end quote, not Juventus. So let's
also flash back to Cambiaso last year. Literally rejecting all these clubs to say Juventus is my Real Madrid.
I don't know if it necessarily was a Cambiaso rejection. Juventus had a price tag of 80 million. City came in at 60. We weren't reaching. Ever since those rumors,
oh my God,
Cambiaso has not been the same player. So that's another question. Is Cambiaso's head still at Manchester City? Did he still want to be there? Tudor even bringing that up kind of makes me think maybe they've had a conversation where he's like, I want to make that move. So it opened up a can of worms. You cannot be saying that. Normally, Tudor is very good in the press conference and how much he loves Juventus and how it's the biggest club in the world. And that was a terrible, terrible answer.
I mean, what I will say, he might be feeling the pressure because this is managing Juve we saw Mata crumble under this, and they've started the season well, but it's still pressure immediately. Like the expectations are so high. And not everybody can deal with it. And Tudor has been given the keys to the kingdom. And it's like, here's your year. And this is what happened with Mata. He started saying crazy stuff all season
You want to
long.
talk about pressure? The next coming games: Villarreal, Milan, Como, Madrid, Lazio. We don't get results in those 5. Are we now hitting the panic button on Tudor? Time will tell, but I mean, you got pressure coming up for sure.
Flipping the switch though, Atalanta, big game for them. I mean, to start the season, draw against Pisa, draw against Parma. Since then, 4-1 against Lecce, 3-0 against Torino. And the big question mark was, how are they going to do in these big games? Because Ivan Juric is not Gasparini. And this was the first real test. And I think it's hard to say that things went bad. They did get a red card, which kind of pushed them back a little bit. But that man-to-man press was really frustrating Juve. I think they struggled to get through like the mid kind of block of Atalanta, and that really frustrated them. And then he does have the offense playing really well. And I think the Solomana signing, he took him from Southampton. We had already coached him, is immediately playing dividends. And we're seeing this Atalanta team perform without the likes of Isakian, Zalewski. Ederson still hasn't been playing this year. So this isn't even their best 11, and they are playing very well. And they're putting up goals. They're competing against the biggest teams in the league. And at what point do we need to flip the script from Juric is not Gasparini, Atalanta are going to be worse, to saying, why can't they do what they did under Gasparini here? And maybe that's not going to be in the Champions League necessarily, but why can't they push top 4? And I think this is the first time where I am saying, you know what, maybe they can, because if you're competing at the Allianz and getting a point out of that, especially when you're down a man without all your best players, like that's a statement.
Not hard to do that anymore.
So self-loathing. This Atalanta team just continues to surprise to the upside, and I don't think it really has a lot to do with Juric. I've said it now two episodes in a row. This is going to be my 3rd time in a row. Call it the hat trick, but this is Gasparini's team still. The ghost of Gasparini is at the helm at Atalanta.
It is.
Juric
I agree.
Juric is just a puppet. Gasparini is literally a ghoul on the sidelines coaching the same team because it looks very similar to what was going on last year. And the only difference is now that they have a second line of quality talent in Sulemana, Kurcevic, and Samardzic, who are proving themselves to be very effective up top. You know, we came into the season thinking that maybe Lookman was going to assume his role back, Scamacca was going to be healthy, and CDK was going to repeat what he had last year. And right now, I don't see a reason to switch up the formula. That 2 games in a row have looked very impressive behind a very talented Sulemana, who's looking more and more like Lookman every single day. So aside from the fact that Darun is now going to be out for the next 2 games, I guess only 1 game since it was a double yellow. I don't think it's a 2-game suspension. In any case, they're going to be without Darun and Ederson for the first time in a very long time. That the midfield duo is going to be completely different from those 2. This Atalanta team, if they get healthy, come down the stretch, classic Logue's coming in, but maybe a punt on Champions League football, and you just focus on the Scudetto, not necessarily the Scudetto, but top 4. This is a scary Atalanta team that I definitely don't want to be playing on a week-to-week basis. They got a couple of very tough games coming up. Their schedule doesn't get any easier. I think Juve, Milan, and Atalanta here have a very tough stretch
Yeah,
of games. But Atalanta, Club Brugge in the Champions League. Club Brugge never sits down against any team in the Champions League. They play Como, Lazio, who continues to put in goals, Slavia Prague, so they'll have one breather there.
Now, don't sleep on those Eastern European teams in the Champions League. We made that mistake.
Don't sleep, but they come back and they got Cremonese, who I still think is a strong side. We'll see what happens against Inter this weekend. Milan, top of the table, best team in the league. And then Udinese. So they'll finally get a full breather come November. But this month of October is going to really show the toughness and what this team is actually all about.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I was a little too harsh on this team at the start of the season, putting them where I had them. They have talent all around the pitch. They've been together for a very long time now. Juric obviously had some very poor showings at Southampton and Roma. And it's not he's looking to be cleansed of those performances and is started off slow, sure, but they're starting to find their gear. And I know Scalvini's injured, so he's still going to come back. Scamacca's coming back. Lookman. So these Ederson, like they got a lot of players that they could work with, and they know they've been there, they've done that. They're the one of the 2 teams, which the other one is Juventus, that are the only teams that did not lose in the Serie A yet as well. So they have a good mix of young and veterans as well. So listen, it's a good squad. We'll have to see if they can continue to build.
Do we want to remind the Paisans where you guys had Atalanta in the table?
Yeah,
I'm telling you guys,
10th?
I think that
10th. Wow,
I think
10th.
that my table prediction might be the worst prediction in the history of predictions. I don't think I'm gonna get one thing right.
That's why we love Serie A.
Yeah,
So
but we don't want to
unpredictable.
spend too much time on Atalanta, though, because we do have some other games to cover really quickly to bring us through. Inter went to Cagliari, won that game 2-0. Our only note here is why can't Inter do this all the time? Do we know yet? Is it still the same thing we've been saying? Mentality? Anything new?
They were incredibly impressive in this game.
They were
I'll be
out.
honest, I only watched the highlights, but every single highlight was a perfect tiki-taka Barcelona-esque play. And I'm not going to say that they haven't done this all season. It just hasn't shown up on the scoreboard, for my opinion.
I think part of it, too, is that this was Hakan's best performance in quite a while. Oh, no, he
Hakan's
balled
been
against
balling.
Juve,
Hakan's
yeah.
been balling.
I think this team really, really goes as Hakan goes in a lot of games, and I think going back to last year, we kind of saw it, and they're really relying on him. He is so good at just, like, ball striking in general, whether it be shooting, passing. It's really unbelievable.
I also think
Hakan's
that
really
it's finally time to lay Hank out to pasture.
I agree with that.
Maybe not actually not involve him at all in the team, but there are some definitely better players here in Sucic and Fratesi that should be getting minutes here. Hank is just not it in this squad. I don't
For
think
whatever
that he deserves to
reason,
be
both
starting.
managers, they keep running Mkhitaryan out there. I don't know why.
Over Fratesi, I think, is like the really, because this, I think at
Even
this point,
Sucic.
Sucic is the number one, though, over Mkhitaryan, and then it's like somehow Fratesi is always like third on the list, which is weird to me.
Get him out of Milan. Get him out of Milan.
I mean,
Send him somewhere.
he's been demanding more playing
Send
time
him
as
to
well.
the other side of town.
But when I saw the lineups of this game, rotation, right? Kivo's went with Joseph Martinez again over Jan Sommer after Jan Sommer's struggles against Juventus. De Vrij seems to be the center back over Cherby now. And then we had Luis Enrique over Dumfries. We had Carlos Augusto start his second game in a row as well over DeMarco. And then we had Thuram, obviously, in Lautaro. But Thuram didn't have that best game. And we saw Pio Esposito come in, score his first Serie A goal of the season.
Against his brother, nonetheless.
Yes.
And good player. Brother's a good player, too.
Cagliari's been playing very well. Very, very good start to the season. And Inter dominated them. Cagliari had no chance in this game. Inter, problem with... belt to ass. And what I will say, and I thought the same thing for the Sassuolo game, they've been lacking finishing. Like, they could have beat this team 5-0. They could have beat Sassuolo 4-1. So they're creating. They lacked finishing. But then it goes back to the question that you posed to start this topic, Bose, is why can't they do this more consistently? I genuinely don't know the answer to that. I don't think anyone in the history of the universe or in the world knows why Inter cannot be this every single game in and game out. It does not make any sense.
I mean, if they could, they would have won 3 Scudettos in a row.
And maybe a Champions League.
Yeah.
It doesn't, and it has to be just the mentality overall. There's no other explanation. But this was a great game, and this goes to show that, listen, people say Inter's in a transition year. People say that they shouldn't be the Scudetto favorites because of Napoli. But this goes to show, like, Inter have talent everywhere on the pitch. Their rotational pieces do. Their starters do. They have the backup goalies good. They got a young striker who can play. So Inter can still potentially do something good, crazy under Kivu that no one thought that they could do because of the squad that they have.
I do want to just hit the brakes a little bit on this Inter performance. Cagliari looked awful, and they're usually incredibly strong at home. The back line was just non-existent.
Yeah, there was some bad defending.
The coverage on the header from Lautaro. I mean, the guy got jumped like Ron back in the day.
Beautiful cross.
Then,
I mean, they look bad because Inter.
No, Bastoni was a great cross. I'm not going to take that away from him. I'm saying that I think that the defense on Lautaro, for Lautaro not being the biggest guy, you got to be able to get up with him. And then the defense on Pio Esposito's goal was they literally just watched the ball go through the entire box. I mean, if you just watch it
was a little unlucky, I think, to be honest.
Yeah, that center back moved his foot. He's got to try to flick it in a different trajectory because that was super easy. So yeah, correct.
And I'm also not going to say that Inter shouldn't have had more goals because Hakan had a beautiful one go off the post. I think Thuram boofed one as well in the second half. But I think the biggest thing that I can showcase here, and not to dwell on it too much, is that DeMarco came in this game and was fucking awesome. DeMarco looked like the DeMarco of the past, but he has shown consistently that he cannot play in games when Inter has to play any defense. And so I don't think that this performance necessarily translates to a much better team in a deeper season race.
That's fair.
Fair.
But maybe I'm just an Inter hater, which I am.
You definitely are. But on the other side of things for Cagliari, the other big one, Belotti torn ACL. He's done for at least 6 months, so that's pretty bad. He was starting 11. He might be done forever after that. El Gallo brought to the pasture. It's over. Couple other games. Verona went to Roma. We saw Roma win this one 2-0. Couple notable things here. Artem Dovbyk starts the game alongside Lorenzo Pellegrini and Matthias Sule. So they went back to that kind of number 10 with Sule and then a number 9. Dovbyk did score a very, very kind of crazy header. I thought it was a very Dovbyk goal that you're not really going to get from Evan Ferguson. So I think maybe there's something to think about with Gasperini there. The other thing is 5 games into the season, first time Roma score more than 2 goals, although they have only conceded 1 goal. Is this a new Gasperini, or do you think this is just kind of like growing pains on both sides of the pitch?
Things lead me to believe that this is what Roma's going to be all season this year. Going back to even last year, I think they had like 11 or 12 1-0 wins under Ranieri. So although we know Gasperini as the goal-scoring firepower guy, maybe that's not what we're going to see this year because we've only seen them the 1-0. However, I think that they need to start hitting the gas because a lot of these games could have easily not went their way.
To Logues' point, that's a big Logues point. He's been saying he's questioning the actual defense. I mean, Svilar has masked some of this.
And that's why he should have been goalie of the year last year. He's going to be goalie of the year this year because he's the best goalie in the league. He literally saved a goal with his face.
Yeah, that was crazy.
I do think that Orban missed, and it was an open net.
2 really bad
open net, and he wrong-footed and hit the crossbar. So this game could have Verona deserved a point off of this game.
Again, another 100%. Time for Verona.
They deserved a point. But yeah, Gasperini's got to start figuring it out a little bit because he's got to figure out something to unlock it. I think he's trying everything in his power. I love that he went to Pellegrini again because he deserved it after playing well. And listen, Dovbyk got the goal and played exceptionally well in his hold-up play and his link-up play. And then he brought in Evan Ferguson, who couldn't do the same. So he's still trying to figure it out, but it's 1-0. I think that this is what we're going to see from Roma for a while, if I'm being honest.
Again, I want to like this Roma team. At this moment, I do not. I do think that getting Dovbyk off the mark here is incredibly important so that they get that rotation going between him and Ferguson. But again, I do have questions about that back line, just as I have questions about Milan's back line. I'm not so certain that this is going to keep up with one goal for every 5 games here, especially considering the fact that even on one of their worst games of the season between Giovanni and Orban, they still looked dangerous. They still had 1.8 XG in this game. So if Svilar ends up getting hurt, maybe like a Mignon has gotten hurt before, or it's just one of his bad days, we're going to see this Roma team potentially crumble.
All right, and to fly through the rest of the match weekend, we had Fiorentina go to Pisa, another draw for Fiorentina. I'm fully panic button. I'm close to Pioli out. I don't know about you guys.
Definitely. This team is far too good. And I texted you guys this after this result. If they keep Palladino with this lineup, are they fighting for top 4? Like, how is Pioli getting it this wrong?
This is what we have tried to tell you about Pioli, Mox, that you did not believe us because you went off to Saudi Arabia instead of staying in the league.
Well, because Milan also were in shambles as well.
We have tried
when he came in second when he left. When I ran him out of town, we were in second.
No, but not.
There was a 4th.
The year he left, you guys finished in 8th.
No, that was last year.
No, you're saying like when he wasn't there. Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, but this is Pioli. It is problematic.
Still Pioli.
But keeping it rolling, Lazio went to Genoa. I got this game completely wrong. I thought Genoa was going to win this one. Lazio won. Tati Castellanos came back full start there. Goal and an assist, notably no Ravella, no Guendouzi, and he played exceptionally well.
I have to say, that I've been wrong, slightly wrong, not entirely wrong. This Lazio team still sucks, but they are completely different with Totti on the field. That he might be just as important as Ravella.
I think he might be more important. They literally don't score goals without him on the field. It's actually insane.
So hand up. I can admit when I'm slightly wrong. I'll admit it.
All right, cool.
I think
Go ahead,
go.
Mats.
Just keep ripping.
Keep rolling.
Yeah.
At the lake, Como faced newly promoted Cremonese, who are continuing a great start to the year. 1-1 draw. I think from a Cremonese perspective,
Great result.
Great result. Notably in this one, Jesus Rodriguez did get sent off. I thought it was kind of soft sending off, but he did have the assist. Another Nico Paz goal, another great Nico Paz performance. Nothing new there. I think Como's still doing well. This is another one of those games. They did have a lot of opportunities. They probably should have won this one, but nothing really, no storyline for me here.
My only storyline here is that this is this performance at a Cremonese, the fact that Bascarotto continues to score goals for this team. This is why I still think that they have a chance to be in 11th. I know this season doesn't start till match week 10, but they still are top 10 right now. That is Cremonese. And this is the reason that I had Como in 9th, even though I still believe in the immense talent that they have on an individual basis. Their maturity level is on the floor, and they continue to bite themselves and they shoot themselves in the foot, get bit in the ass by getting so many red cards, playing with 10 men. As of right now, Fabregas should be practicing with 10 men.
My takeaway from this game is just how fast things can change, man. Like Como, the start of this game, Como looked good. They were winning 1-0. Cremonese were getting almost overran. Like it looked like it was going to get out of control quickly. They held on. They got back into the game, and then after that, after like the 40th minute or so, it was all Cremonese. And so just how quickly things can change in games in the Serie A is just my takeaway.
All right, keep it rolling. Bologna went to Lecce, tie that game 2-2, 94th minute equalizer from Francesco Camarda to save Lecce a point there. For me, notably in this one, I think Italiano really over-rotated the squad, getting ready for European football, which we've seen at his Fiorentina days. He does prioritize. So something to watch there in Bologna has been a little hit and miss, kind of like the worst of Italiano. I'm still hot on them. It remains to be seen what happens. Udinese went to SAS. SAS won this one 3-1. I think this was their statement kind of game, like back in the league. Front three looked great. Loriente scored a great goal. Kone scored a goal, and I think Berardi may have scored in this one as well.
No, Berardi didn't score.
No, the sub, Iononi. But Berardi had an assist.
Berardi had an assist, okay.
This is how sad they're going to live and die by that front three. The rest of the squad is not that strong, but this is exactly the reason they should have never went down. Between Berardi, Pinamonti, and Loriente, one of them is going to have a good game on a week-by-week basis. Sometimes it's going to be two of them, like Berardi and Loriente here, which is going to be able to help them overcompensate for maybe when a Pinamonti, like here, doesn't have that great of a game.
And then last game at the weekend, Parma hosted Torino. They won that one 2-1. I think Parma should have blown the doors off of them more than even it was. Notably, Matteo Pellegrino in this one netted a brace. He probably should have scored 5 or 6 goals. He had some crazy good opportunities. But Baroni, notably on a Torino side, went back to the 3-4-3 that I absolutely was bashing. And once again, it didn't work. But what did work for him was he went back to Ngong, and he scored one of the goals of the season so far.
Banger.
That's match week 5. Midweek stuff. Crazy midweek stuff here. Yeah, we have a bunch of midweek stuff. Champions League, Atalanta hosting Bruges, Inter hosting Slavia Prague. Even though I think it's Prague. Napoli hosting Lisbon, Juve going to Villarreal, and in the Europa League, we've got Roma hosting Lille and Bologna hosting Freiburg. Those are actually both pretty good games. And then in the Conference League, we have Fiorentina hosting Sigma.
This might be where Fiorentina fans call for Pioli's head, because they are to the final every single year of this Conference League. And if he starts with the loss and they're in,
I think a draw. I think if they draw this, it's a problem.
I think it's a problem already.
Yeah, it is.
Mats, don't sleep on Villarreal. I know they lost Alex Baina, but
they got my boy. They got our boy. My boy, I can't remember his name right now. The center back. He can't come back just as good. Portuguese. What is his name?
Oh fuck! Who are you talking about?
Renato Vega. They got Renato
Vega,
Vega.
baby.
Yeah, he's very
Damn, he
solid,
did go to
yeah.
Villarreal.
No, Villarreal.
Solid player.
Last time Real or Juventus played Villarreal in the Champions League, Dusan scored his debut goal in the Champions League for Juventus, and they lost like 4-1 or something like that.
Dude,
That was when
Mott's
Chukwueze was on the team. He scored a pretty good goal.
Juve knowledge that he can just pull out of his brain is actually insane. The fact that he pulled out the last time they played Villarreal, who scored the goal.
I can tell you the goal. Danilo played a long ball over the top to Vlahovic. He chested it down, scored it. Not looking at the goal, it was very good. I was like, wow, Dusan might be really good. It was 11 seconds into the game, maybe 12. I was like, holy crap, lost the game. But I'm a very visual memory guy, guys.
But I will say,
for the paisanos to know about me, I'm
with
very visual.
Juve has kind of cooled off over the last 2 years, and I have received far less I love Juventus texts because when they were playing well, I was waking up and going to bed with an I fucking love Juventus text, and I no longer receive them.
Yeah, well, now it's I miss Kolo Muani.
Oh, Maz, I gotta apologize. I was not familiar with your game. But that is the midweek action, guys. We do have a packed match week 6 before we head into the international break. We've got Sassuolo going to Verona. That's going to be a great game, in my opinion. A battle of some teams that could be mid-table. We've got Torino in shambles traveling to the Capitale playing Lazio. Hopefully, Castellanos does show up for Lazio. Lecce go to Parma. Probably going to be a rock fight. Cremonese at Inter. I have a call on that game in just a second. Great game. Maybe the second best game this weekend. Third best game. We'll see. Como going to Bergamo. Quick trip.
That's a sick game. That's a really sick game.
That's going to be a really, really good game. I think it's going to show the true colors of both teams here. A lot to prove coming off of some decent performances the last couple of weeks. Cagliari is leaving the island. They're going to Udine. They're playing Udinese. Pisa down the road going to Bologna. Roma going to Fiorentina. Is Pioli even at the helm during this game? Let's find out. Genoa is traveling to Naples. They're playing Napoli. And then the Calcio Culture Derby. Milan is going to Turin. We're playing Juventus. How do you feel about that?
I'm happy you said that because I was thinking about this. I was like, how is this not like a named derby? And I guess it is the Calcio Culture Derby.
It's the Calcio Culture Derby.
I was thinking that exact same thing.
What a Sunday at 2:45.
It's going to ruin my entire Sunday, but I'm going to be there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's got a draw written all over it. 1-1, maybe 2-2.
Actually, the Allegri Derby too.
Allegri,
Derby di Allegri.
I think that's got a draw written all over. I think what you're going to see in the Milan Juventus game is one team
Derby
and AC Milan have a lot of shape, and then Juventus have absolutely no shape. That is what I know you'll see.
I'm interested to see if Juventus is able to deal with Modric or if Modric takes complete advantage of Juve's midfield.
That's not even a question. Modric is
that I think is that I think is going to be
what I would like to people to vote on what they would like this derby called. Calcio Culture Derby is thrown out there. Allegri Derby, Adrian Rabiot Derby, Veronica Rabiot Derby. So people let us know what you want it to be, and that's what we'll refer to it next episode. But we have one segment left, folks. We do have one segment left.
We do.
Maybe we should avoid
it.
And
it's every well.
We started off poor last year too.
Honestly, we did. But this doesn't start till match week 10. My record does not count until match week 10. But I do feel a little fraudulent that I've been soliciting people to spend their money on this, and we've just been absolutely fucking garbage.
I have the math too on all this.
This week is Coppa di Luna. Coppa di Luna is back. It never leaves. It's always staying. And let me tell you this. I am not sure about this week. I was not seeing the board well, but I do invite you to still put your money on it.
Bad match weekend for Colby.
Tough week.
I wasn't seeing the board. I wasn't seeing the board, but I'm still going to bet it.
Maybe that helps us though, because I think that the first 5 games we've been like, when we've been picking, we're like, oh, great pick, lock. And they haven't been.
That's true.
So maybe us being like, wow, this is tough, we're going to hit.
And to preview this, we went 0 for 3 in match week 5. That's where this is coming from.
I wasn't going to.
I think they know they took the Kobe. We didn't make them money.
It's showing in their wallets. But I feel about as good about my leg this week as I did about Milan under Fonseca, and that was at the end of his tenure. So don't get that twisted. But I am taking Inter -1.5 against Cremonese. This goes against everything my brain, my heart wants to say, but that's what makes me feel better about it. -160, not a ton of value, but I do need to get on the board. Inter is at home. Cremonese is running far too hot for their potential this season. This is where they take a little bit of a step back.
What I will say about this, Lugs, what I like about this pick, Cremonese had an exceptional performance at the San Siro and won a game. So there is no possible way that happens a second time in the same season that they were promoted.
No way.
But there might be.
My pick, I'm
Great pick here,
going.
Mats.
I'm no longer betting on Juventus as it hasn't helped me.
This happened last year
Thank
too.
God.
Yeah, I know it has, obviously, but I'm picking two of the lower league or lower level teams, I guess you would call them, although they have been scoring goals, and that's why I'm taking Verona and Sassuolo, both teams to score. I've seen Verona 2 games in a row now play very well and should have scored a lot of goals. Sassuolo, as Logue said, live and die by the front three. Let's see both teams score.
Mats,
Right.
I love that. I'm going to put my second mortgage, which is actually my first mortgage, on that bet separately.
That's a good one. All right, and I've got Napoli -1.5 at home against Genoa. Again, I'm going back to mathematics. Sassuolo covered this at Genoa this week. Napoli lost. They're due for a win. They're at home. If Sass can do it, Napoli can do it. Also, +145 is crazy value.
Great value.
I like this pick. Colby's +660. Weak ass
You guys
Colby,
know
but we need a bounce back.
we need a win. We need our first Colby win. You guys know the deal. You bet the Colby, you bet each individual leg, you get involved. +660 means you put $100 down, you're getting $760 back. Definitely lay the house on Matz's leg. You can join me. I'm going to be doing the same thing. But with that, that's a wrap on match week 5. Lot of midweek soccer to be watched this week. Paisans, definitely tune in. And we've got a great match week 6 ahead of us before the international break, which is just far too many international breaks, but we have to deal with what we have to do. And with that being said, Paisans, thank you for joining us. You know where to find us on all the socials. We love, love, love the interaction. I especially love any opportunity that anybody takes a shot at Vos. Continue to do so. I did not take my opportunity this episode to tell him how poorly wrong he was about Napoli, but I would love for you guys to lay it on him in the comments. That's on X, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, at Calcio Culture FC. And you know where to listen to us on your favorite streaming podcast sites. That's Apple Pods and Spotify. Mats, take us away.
Paisanos, do not be a gagoots, and Forza Calcio.